Howdy friends! No Man's Sky's limited time events, known as expeditions, are some of my favorite pieces of content. They can tell unique stories, introduce novel gameplay mechanics, and create experiences that you just can't find in the regular game. You never know what you're going to get when you boot up an expedition. Well, normally you wouldn't. However, the Voyagers Expedition treads some familiar ground in ways I wish it wouldn't. I'm Kanaju, and this is my review of No Man's Sky Expedition 11, Voyagers. On August 24th, 2023, Hello Games released No Man's Sky Echoes, a free content update full of excellent additions to the popular sci-fi game. A week later, Expedition 11, Voyagers, launched for all players. For the uninitiated, expeditions are a separate game mode in which you complete milestones to earn exclusive rewards. You can then redeem those rewards across all of your saves. They're usually only available for about 4 to 6 weeks, after which you can no longer complete the expedition. This particular expedition runs until October 16th, 2023, so you have plenty of time to complete it, if you're interested. Before you do though, I recommend you listen to the rest of this review for some tips on how to save time. So earlier I mentioned Voyagers retreads old ground. That's not unusual for expeditions which regularly feature familiar milestone challenges. However, Voyagers is more derivative than usual. It's not exactly bad, but it's definitely underwhelming. Let me put it into context first. You see, most expeditions roughly fall into one of two categories. Firstly, you have the narrative-driven expeditions, with unique stories and mechanics. Emergence, Leviathan, Singularity, those are good examples. These are basically new story campaigns. Then you have the checklist-driven expeditions, Pioneers, Exobiology, and now Voyagers. These expeditions are just a list of activities that you have to complete with no overarching narrative to tie them together. Whereas the first category of expeditions gives us novel experiences unavailable in the regular game, the second category offers almost nothing unique besides the exclusive rewards. Emergence, for example, asks you to discover the dark lore of an ancient cult in order to combat the spread of Titan worms across the galaxy. Voyagers, on the other hand, asks you to scan plants and animals. Leviathan placed you in a time loop where every planet was trying its best to kill you and reset the cycle. Voyagers places you in one of the safest galaxies in the game, Eisentam, and then dares you to find a dangerous planet. Literally, that was actually the last milestone I completed, was finding a dangerous planet. The Blighted Expedition sent you on a hunt across galaxies to piece together a space pirate map and discover buried treasure. Yarr! Voyagers sends you to 5 rendezvous points for no other reason than some of the stuff you're looking for can be found in those systems. I think you see what I'm getting at. Voyagers isn't bad per se, it's just disappointing when compared to some of the epic adventures we've seen in the past. Heck, remember when the Normandy from Mass Effect showed up in Expedition 2? I mean, that was one of my top moments of that year. Voyagers doesn't have any standout moments like that, let alone unique ones. It's just a collection of generic tasks. Now, to be clear, most expeditions do include generic tasks to fill out their milestones. However, those generic tasks are usually, at least in the better expeditions, simple to accomplish, sandwiched between more interesting moments, or specifically serve the theme of the expedition. For example, Cartographers was another expedition that focused on exploration-based milestones, much like Voyagers. It stranded us on a single planet though, without the ability to use any starship, until we repaired the one we started with. Besides fixing up your starship, the milestones were quite similar to Voyagers. You had to scan plants, animals, and minerals, you needed to adopt a companion, walk a certain amount, dig a certain amount, and collect certain resources. There was no new lore, and all of the milestones consisted of regular, some would even say boring game mechanics. Yet, I'm not shy to say I love Cartographers. and so did many others. Why though? What's the difference? Well, the difference was that cartographers recontextualized all of those simple mechanics by simply removing the starship from the equation. Suddenly, we couldn't just fly to the space station or another planet to gather resources. We had to find them ourselves, on foot. We adopted companions not just for the milestone, but so that we could ride across the surface of the planet faster than we could on foot. The liftoff milestone, which is usually awarded when you leave a planet at the beginning of an expedition, suddenly went from being the simplest milestone to the most difficult. Reaching Rendezvous 1 became a triumphant moment, as it meant we finally left the planet we'd been stuck on for hours. Simple tasks were recontextualized. In the Voyagers Expedition, you're challenged with ascending a high peak. Sounds pretty epic, actually. Being challenged to summit some exotic space mountain. In reality, though, I just landed my ship at the top of one, got out, and I completed the milestone.
I'm gonna park on the side so I can summit it myself. I did it! Woo! Look at me, I climbed Mount Everest.
The action was no different from discovering a paradise planet or a cold one or anything like that. I just parked and got out. Same action. Whereas in cartographers, I also had to climb a mountain. Multiple, really. But each climb was a challenge in its own right, even with exocraft. In Voyagers, we have to collect 7 storm crystals. The hardest part of that is just finding a planet with storm crystals. Otherwise, easy peasy. In the Leviathan Expedition, however, we had a similar task to collect storm crystals, except Leviathan was a permadeath expedition. Suddenly, the simple task of walking into a storm becomes a trial that could easily reset your entire game. One bolt of lightning, one wrong jump, one missed recharge, or one unnoticed predator, and you lose everything. Again, it's a simple task, recontextualized. In previous expeditions, these tasks could feel like accomplishments. In this expedition, though, they just feel like chores. Even with trivial milestones and no story, that doesn't mean an expedition is necessarily going to be bad, though. In fact, the Pioneers Expedition was almost identical to Voyagers, yet I enjoyed it a lot more. Why is that? Well, before I answer that question, I think I should point out just how similar the two expeditions actually are. Shout out to the No Man's Sky Assistant app for making it easy to compare expedition milestones. If you're a new player, I can't recommend the Assistant app enough. It has cooking recipes, crafting recipes, checklists, and a database of every item in the game. It's seriously awesome and free to boot. I'll put a link in the description. Anywho, check out the similarities between these two expeditions. So, in the Pioneers Expedition, we obviously have 5 rendezvous milestones, and the same in Voyagers. Not a big deal, lots of expeditions have rendezvous. However, Pioneers, we have Interstellar, warp to a new system. It's identical in Voyagers. Homecoming, establish a base. Yep, same thing. Naturalist, discover 20 creatures. In Voyagers, you only have to discover 14. Thank goodness, but again, it's the same milestone. The Pilgrim, explore 10,000 units on foot. Now, it's only 8,000. Red Skies, visit a red star. Same in Voyagers. Blue Expanse, visit a blue star. Same in Voyagers. Event Horizon, enter a black hole. Same in Voyagers. Companionship, adopt 4 companions. Well, you only have to adopt 2 in Voyagers, but, same diff. The Collector, collect 10 ancient artifacts. In Voyagers, all that glitters only asks you to excavate a single ancient artifact. But, again, it's the same activity. Cluster Horde, earn 5,000 nanites in Pioneers. Or Reality Grains, earn 7,700 nanites in Voyagers. Stormy Skies, collect 50 storm crystals in Pioneers. My goodness, that was grindy. In Voyagers, Bottle Lightning asks you to collect 7 storm crystals. A lot more reasonable. The Glass Bead, acquire an abyssal treasure. Whereas in Voyagers, Gold from Salt, acquire an aquatic treasure. Same thing. Farmer, farm 35 plants in Pioneers, or harvest 18 plants in Voyagers. And of course, Linguaphile, learn 50 alien words. Those are actually broken up into 3 milestones in Voyagers. Words for Friends, Gra Gra Gra, and Linguistic Decoding, which actually those milestones I believe were taken from Expedition 2 word for word, just a different amount. Yeah, so that's 14 Voyagers milestones that are practically identical to Pioneers. 19 if you count the rendezvous separately. Not to mention milestones that are similar, such as Pioneer's Liftoff, which you complete by leaving a planet, compared to Voyager's Planet Side, which you earn by landing on one. Now, Hello Games are known for their efficiency, reusing assets and systems in clever ways to create as much content as possible for such a small team. In fact, almost every expedition features a milestone seen in some previous expedition, and that's okay. If 4 or 5 expeditions ask me to adopt a companion, I'm not complaining. If multiple expeditions want to challenge me to reach a blue star, it's no big deal. However, the amount of content that Voyagers recycles is disappointing. It's not recontextualized through any unique mechanics or narrative, it's just recycled. What's worse is that the 19 reused milestones are just comparing it to Pioneers. It also borrows milestones from Beachhead, the Cartographers, Exobiology, the Blighted, and Polestar, at least from what I could tell. Out of 40 milestones in Voyagers, there are about 10 that are actually unique to the expedition. And 3 of those are use a portal, acquire 6 vortex cubes, and build a wonder projector. They're technically unique, but don't actually offer any unique gameplay. So, the 7 remaining milestones it brings to the table are exploration themed, just like the expedition is supposed to be. Find a really cold planet, find a really nice planet, find a creature with hot blood, find a critter with acidic blood, etc. In the past, we have been tasked with finding specific planets. In fact, Pioneers asked us to. However, these new milestones are way more specific than they were in the past. We don't just want a paradise planet this time, Hello Games says. We want a planet with a paradise quotient over 90%. We're not just looking for a predator, we need a predator with aggression levels over 28 PAV. Now, as cool as I'm sure that sounds, probably, in practice it kinda sucks, because those stats can only be discovered after you've landed on a planet and scanned the creature. That means it's sort of random whether or not you find one. I scanned every creature I could on every planet I visited. That way I wouldn't miss one with a specific blood pH level or temperature. It didn't really feel like exploration or discovery, just felt like RNG.
Warm. Or it could be an animal that's in an environment so warm that its internal temperature is just naturally elevated. What? Oh. I guess I found the Eternal Garden.
At first, I tried to be clever, right? Acidic blood. I'll check a toxic planet. And that actually worked pretty well, right? I found a creature with acidic blood on a toxic planet. Cool. Next I thought, hot blood. I'll check a hot planet. And that almost worked. I found a few creatures with exceptionally hot blood. However, they weren't above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, the specific temperature I needed for the expedition, so they didn't count. No matter, I'll just keep looking, I told myself, for hours, landing on hot planets, scanning everything, and then leaving empty-handed every time. There's a similar story for about half of those RNG milestones. Now, I've built this YouTube channel on my supposed knowledge of No Man's Sky and its universe. However, all of my knowledge and experience amounted to, let's check this planet now. Nope. Alright, let's check that one. I felt like I was wasting my time, because I knew I could just look it up and be done with it. But just looking up the coordinates of these things sort of defeats the purpose of exploration and discovery to me. But, everyone has their limits, and after about 10 hours of flying around aimlessly, I gave up and just looked up the coordinates. Shout out to Phoenix_RDT_ on the No Man's Sky subreddit for compiling a list of coordinates for this expedition's milestones. If you're interested in completing the expedition just for the rewards, I recommend using a guide. I'll leave a link to this Reddit post in my description below. So, I used portal coordinates to complete the expedition. And you know what? I'm not even ashamed. Because in retrospect, that might have actually been what Hello Games was intending for us to do all along. I say that because they do give you all 16 portal glyphs as a milestone reward. And they do specifically send you to a portal at Rendezvous 3. And they do force you to use the portal without giving you any specific place to go. If they wanted people to discover things organically without the use of portals, they wouldn't emphasize just how easy it would be to just use a portal, right? So, if you haven't completed the expedition yet, I recommend just using a guide. The discoveries I found myself didn't feel like accomplishments, they felt like luck. I didn't experience personal satisfaction when I randomly completed milestones. I felt relief. That doesn't feel great to say, but it's the truth. I didn't enjoy the RNG-based milestones, and if you're not enjoying them either, the portal's the way to go. Alright, so I've been pretty negative so far, but it's not all bad. So let's talk about what I think Voyagers did right. For starters, the milestone requirements themselves aren't grindy. Thank goodness. Collecting 7 storm crystals is so much better than having to collect 50 like we did in Pioneers. Find 10 aquatic creatures? Okie dokie. Unearth 1 buried artifact instead of 10? No problemo. There's a fair variety of activities that don't overstay their welcome thanks to reasonable requirements. The RNG exploration milestones weren't just the most tedious, but also the most repetitive. After all, they're just landing and scanning creatures in every instance. There's no practical difference between scanning a creature with hot blood or corrosive blood. It's just scanning hundreds of creatures. On the other hand, collecting vortex cubes forces you into caves. Collecting buried and aquatic treasures each have their own paths and various options to complete them. So overall, most milestones are well balanced. That's great. Honestly, the only other real positive is that this expedition does introduce new players to a lot of different mechanics. Doesn't introduce any combat, which I think is fine for an exploration-based mission. But, it shows them a lot of different things and it kind of, gets their feet wet, literally and figuratively. Okay, so besides the milestones, the rewards for this expedition are also a bit weak. I like the tent and the expedition sticker as always, but personally I don't care for the companion you get as a reward. Seems kinda random. To that end, I'll also say that the rewards in general don't really have anything to do with the expedition's theme. Why do I get a hoverbot as a companion, or a robot hand for my other companions for completing an expedition about exploration? I realize that's a nitpick, it really is, but when you look at the themed rewards for other expeditions, it's a bit underwhelming. So, as demonstrated, the Pioneers expedition was almost identical to this one, only about 20 times more grindy, at least. Yet many folks, myself included, have fond memories of that expedition. Why? Well, frankly, it's the fact that Pioneers was the first expedition. Ever. All of the milestones were new. Every rendezvous was a novel experience. And most importantly, the rewards were excellent. Possibly the best rewards of any expedition to date. Now, all that said, I would never replay Pioneers if given the chance. In fact, I didn't when they ran the Redux expedition later that year. It was just a grind. And while Voyagers could feel like a repeat of Pioneers, luckily it avoided the tedious grind of Expedition 1. However, it trades it in for RNG and really improves nothing else. Now, I could go on, but I think I've made my point. The expedition, underwhelming. Before I close though, I'd like to share what I might have done to improve it. After all, I hate to complain without offering any viable solution. So, Voyagers is supposed to be focused on exploration and discovery. Instead of focusing on arbitrary stats that players can't see or predict, like aggression level, I would focus on activities that lead to more natural exploration. Landing on a planet for 3 minutes, scanning everything as fast as possible, and then leaving isn't exactly exploration. It's kind of boring. Instead, I believe wandering around planets is where the fun is, where the immersive gameplay is. Instead of asking the player to discover 26 plants, I might ask them to discover 12 plants, but on a single planet. Some planets, such as exotic or empty worlds, wouldn't be able to support such a milestone. Instead, players would need to find a planet that does have that many plants. They might need to scan underwater plants or those found in caves, so it'll force them to walk around for a while, and in places, like I said, underwater and caves, where they can't just get there via their starship. Another change I might make would be replacing the find a creature with corrosive blood with requiring the player to scan a cave-dwelling creature. While some RNG would still be involved, you can actually check the fauna discovery page to know ahead of time whether or not a planet has any subterranean creatures. Then, once you confirm it does, you'll have to explore to find it, since they won't be visible from where you land. Paired with the Vortex Cube milestone, players will now have a more involved underground adventure. The underwater creature and treasure milestones already work well because aquatic navigation is more involved than surface exploration. In fact, I might even add another underwater milestone for finding 6 sunken relics, since those can be found in any ocean but require swimming around as opposed to following a location marker. I would also like to focus more on the Wonders catalog. It's such a fantastic exploration feature that I wish they utilized more. Building the Wonder projector is great, but having a milestone for actually adding a custom wonder would be even better. I did this as a result of building the projector, but some folks might not take that extra step. Also, since we all start with freighters, asking us to build a scanner room would demonstrate an alternate means of exploration that might be preferable for some players. Instead of a milestone for finding one very specific wonder at a very specific level, such as the unwelcome milestone and its inhospitable quotient, I would instead ask players to find a minimum number of miscellaneous wonders. That way, players are rewarded for visiting a wide range of planets and discovering different plants and animals. As I was exploring looking for these very specific wonders, I regularly found new records on different wonders. However, they weren't specific enough for those milestones, which made them feel insignificant. Like, wow, you just found, the hottest planet ever. Too bad it's not hot enough. You know what I mean? Instead, rewarding the player for finding any new records might solve that issue. Taking another cue from Pioneers, while I understand the annoyance of milestones based on discovering systems that other players haven't visited yet, I do believe requiring at least one new discovery be uploaded would make sense for this expedition. You can almost do any discovery, if it's a plant or an animal or a planet or a system, just anything that hasn't been discovered by another player yet, and then uploading that. It would help encourage players to venture out on their own. Whether they used a portal or their hyperdrive, they'd be going somewhere completely new, somewhere undiscovered. And isn't that kind of the theme of the expedition, after all? Lastly, making the rewards more exploration themed would also have been pretty cool. In previous expeditions, we got maps, globes, and even an entire map room. As much as I love the tent, and I do love the tent, the other rewards seem more autophage themed than exploration themed. And if you don't want to make new assets, maybe take the holographic map off of the wall of the cartographer in the space station. I don't know, it's just an idea. But those are just a few things I might have changed. Obviously, if I were building it from the ground up, I might add a story or some unique mechanic, such as a new scanner or compass. But within the scope of what they've built, I think just replacing a few milestones would make a positive difference. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Voyagers. Took me about 10 hours or so to complete. I found the milestones to be generic or otherwise RNG-based, and the rewards barely justified the playthrough for me. Overall, I would rate it poorly. Again, don't let me discourage you from playing it though for the rewards, as the portal will make quick work of the expedition. I'm just sharing my impressions. And so ends my review of Expedition 11 Voyagers. Now, it's your turn to share your perspectives. Did you enjoy the expedition? How long did it take you to complete? Was it worth it? And what did you enjoy or not enjoy? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to leave a like on the video if you made it this far. It takes a lot of time to put these together, and very little time to leave a like. And if you've just found my channel and enjoy me going into way too much detail about my favorite games, I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button too. It's free and it gives both you and I something in return. You get to see my criminally underwatched Starfield unboxing video, and I get the chance to keep earning your support in the future. Win-win, really. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!